Let's see if we get this started. See if we have any chats here. If you can see the chat, go ahead and comment something. It might take a second to load in. All right, here we are. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com, and we're here for another live video, and I'm going to help you feel more confident about vocabulary. What I'm going to show you in this video, it's obviously going to be easier with a teacher, but this is how you would do it by yourself if you're trying to improve by yourself. The lit man. Nice to see you there. Hello, sir. Nice to see everybody out there. All right, let me wipe off the board and we'll get started. I'm starting a little bit earlier today. Now, I wanted to make this video. What, Nils is there first and George right on time? Oh, no. As you thought you were first, or so you thought. Oh, Diana is there. Nice to see you there. Elaine. All right, great to see everybody here. Let's hop in and just get started in the video. Let me see if I might be crooked over here. Let me fix this camera. All right, let me know if that's looking better. I think that should be okay. All right, thanks for spending your time with me. Will, thank you for spending your time with me. It's nice to see everybody out there. All right, the reason I wanted to make this video is because a member of Fluent for Life was asking a question about a particular grammar point. Sometimes I like to do this to go even into more detail. We answer questions inside the program for people every day, so whatever people have questions about. The goal is to end the doubt that people have about vocabulary or grammar or whatever, so that they can use their voice, their ability to speak without having to think or hesitate or translate or have any worries, things like that. So this question in particular, I thought this was very interesting, and like my team, we're kind of thinking about it, like how do we actually like explain this the best way? And so when we're providing answers to people, it's important for us, we try to give different perspectives if we can, just to really remind people that obviously you want to get lots of different examples when you're trying to like learn grammar. I'll talk more about that in this video. But the important thing is that we want to end the doubt. So any doubt you have, if we can end that, I'm going to show you how to do that by yourself in this video. But let's get started. I think someone just said, oh, Bella said good night. Good night is what you say when you're going to bed. If you're just in the evening, you would say good evening. And this is actually an interesting point about like what we're going to talk about in this video, so I'll mention it very briefly. So if we say good evening. So I had not planned to talk about this, but why don't we get started with this anyway, because it's a very interesting and very simple and also very common example. Now, I don't want to go through like a long list of steps or anything. I've put a very kind of basic framework of what I do in the description below this video. It's basically 4 things. The first one is we want to get some kind of example. So we have an example right here. Anything where we might know something or we hear something, but we're still not 100% confident about that vocabulary, whatever that is. So this one, like maybe you think you're saying the correct thing, maybe you're not, but we want to get something, and if we're also trying to get, like let's say we get a longer sentence, we want to simplify that as much as possible. And then the next step is really to understand when people do things, okay? So we really want to connect vocabulary with situations. This is what natives are doing, rather than trying to take a rule or a definition and then connect that with vocabulary. So as an example, we have this perfect one just to start the video with. Again, I had not planned on this, but here we go. So when we hear something like this, we want to get our example. We want to simplify it as much as possible. We can't really make this more simple. This is as simple as it could get for our example. And then we want to compare. So we're actually able to do that right here because we have these examples. So if we're trying to understand which is the correct phrase for the situation, we have to understand when people use them. So let's say I'm out, in the evening, I'm walking around, it's nighttime, I go and meet my friends. Which one of these would I say? So a native would say, which one? Good evening or good night? Good evening or good night? Now, these are tricky for a non-native because it sounds a little bit, obviously they sound very similar. It's, why would you pick one versus the other? But if you pay attention to when natives use one or the other, I'm going to say good evening. All right, so at nighttime while I'm going out and seeing people, I would say good evening. So if you're meaning for this video, if you're introducing yourself or you're just giving some kind of greeting and it's nighttime, you would say good evening. All right, but before I go to bed, I'm saying good night. All right, so at the end of you're meeting even with your family or your friends and you're going to leave and go home or you're going to bed, you would say good night. All right, so good evening. We're still in like the evening, like kind of before, maybe like around dinner time before going to bed. So that's good evening and then good night before you sleep. Good night, good night. All right, so this is a very basic example of what we'll be talking about in this video. Let me look at chat very quick and then we'll get into that example. But I'm glad I saw this because it reminds us that even some basic things, we need to really make sure we are certain about them to use them confidently and fluently. All right, let's see here if I missed anybody. Let's see here. Jacqueline says, catch you live for the first time, but I was just taking my puppy out to do this thing, going back to bed now. Watching later. Okay. Let's see. Neil says, for what need I the word ain't? Well, I don't really recommend you use it. You don't have to use it, but you will understand ain't. It's just like is not. That's basically what it means. It's isn't. This is the correct English, but you will hear ain't sometime. Okay. But the correct English is isn't or is not. All right. So it works exactly the same way. It's just incorrect English. But you will hear it sometimes like I ain't, like I ain't. And the whole sentence will usually be like shortened. So I ain't gonna go. I ain't gonna go. I ain't gonna go. So it's like I, and then I ain't is like I am not gonna go. So it functions in the same way. It could be like again how bad the grammatically incorrect English could be. It could be isn't. It could be am not. It could be they are not. So like I ain't gonna go, or they ain't gonna go, or you ain't gonna go. Okay. So it's useful to understand this English, but I don't recommend you use it because it's incorrect. Like don't write a business letter and write ain't in there. Okay. So I ain't gonna do something. You would say isn't or am not, or they are not, or they aren't. All right. But yes, you will hear that. So ain't may mean also hasn't. Well, I suppose like let's say the example is like he hasn't gone. So he ain't gone either. Yeah, I mean you could use it that way also. Yes, it's actually very useful. It's just incorrect. All right. So we have specific rules for the language, and people break the language all the time. But I ain't gonna do something, or he ain't gone. That's like really a bad usage of ain't. Even it's even incorrect for that. But it's hard to say when ain't is correct or not correct because it's just incorrect in general. All right. So it's useful to understand, but it just means is not. It's like whatever the thing is, it's not happening. So like I not going to go. Okay, so I am not going to go. I ain't gonna go. All right. That's a good question though. So he hasn't or he ain't or whatever. Ain't mean may also hasn't. Yes, it could mean that's right. I saw it in a song. Yeah, I bet. All right. How do you use the word whom? That's another. Well, you can look this up very easily. I'll just answer it very quickly because I can. Natives will confuse this too, but it's interesting. Like part of this is I'm actually going to talk about this, and I'll never use it. So I'll talk about this later in this video. But when we're trying to compare different examples, if you're trying to remember like who versus whom, so let's say, oh, I have, so who did something? Who did it? Or we say like whom, which do we use? All right. Typically, the way you would use it, or the way you can remember how to use this, is by making a question out of it. So are like, you could say like, who are we giving it to? So who are we giving it to? Who are we giving it to? All right, as an example, okay? So who are we giving it to? This is like a weird kind of sentence. In English, you will often hear this. People will tell you not to end a sentence in to, and this sounds a bit awkward. But the reason it sounds awkward is because like the correct thing would really be like to whom. Like to whom are we giving it, okay? So if we want to, like, to whom are we giving something, all right? Because when we're talking about like something going to a person, if we can answer the question with like him, then we would say whom, like him, we get whom or her, all right? But if we're talking about like he did it, so like who did it? He did. But whom is him, okay? So it's like you can think about the rule logically, but it's better to just get lots of examples like we'll talk about in this video. But in general, if you can answer the question of like who did it, he did it. So what is the question? Like who did that? So who did that? Very quick question. Who did that? So the answer would be maybe he did that, or she did that, or I did that. And so this is correct. Who did it? But if our answer is like him, or her, or them, then we would use who. All right? Now this is not a terribly difficult thing to understand. It's just trying to ask these kinds of questions just to get the sense of that the same way a native would. But remember that natives do make this mistake a lot, especially with this kind of construction, because it's much more natural to ask a question this way rather than like to whom, which would be correct, but it just sounds a little bit kind of like older English that people don't really use so much. So where are you going, or where are you going to? You probably wouldn't add the to at the end, but you will hear that sometimes from natives. All right. So remember, my job is to help you understand native speech, and sometimes natives speak incorrectly. Okay, like ain't. All right. So I ain't got time for that. All right, let's see what we got here. Ronaldo says, could you help me with share, looking for, and seeking, how to use the term? I'll come back to that later. Share and seek. Well, those are like two different. Help me with share. Oh, you're asking like looking for and seeking? Yeah, those would be the same thing. But I'll explain to you in this video how you can kind of answer questions like that for yourself. Gentleman says, I will be using the method you teach to learn Portuguese. It's different from the ways I've learned, and I haven't figured out totally how I can learn the language with this approach. Yeah, so I'll show you more about that in this video. All right, Jacinto 19 like 17 watching. Let's give a thumbs up. Let's go team. Thank you very much. For example, how to take the time to understand something while I avoid using a dictionary of translations. Yeah, so we will talk about that in this video. This should be an interesting example. And these are the kinds of questions that I think about as someone who's helping people learn. So I need to think, how can I make this very easy? I need to eliminate the doubt from learners so that they feel confident when they speak. But if you don't have a teacher, like if you're not a member of Fluent for Life, or you're just learning by yourself, then this is something you can do. All right, so here's the example we got. This was the difference between, let me see if I remember it exactly. It was already very simple, so I tell people, of course, if you get a longer sentence, we really want to just simplify or remove like the particular thing that you're struggling with. So if you have a longer sentence, like I went to the store and I did this and that, but there's only one part of that that you don't understand, you want to focus on that thing. And then we really want to try to understand what is the situation and when, so when would we use something? We don't want to think about a rule or look up a definition or something. We want to understand, so a situation is happening, and that can be like, even like this blue marker. This blue marker is a situation. It's just a particular thing, and so we can, without giving a translation, we can just say, oh, blue marker, and I can compare that with a red marker or black marker, something, so you understand it well. All right, so this is an interesting example of the car. Let's just say the car. Let me use black. I think this is not so clear. I want to be very precise with this. Okay, the car. Ooh, that's very nice. Look at that marker. Wow. The car didn't start. The car didn't start. And we also had the contrasting example, so I also recommend like trying to understand, oops, got two D's in there. You know I have this problem of trying to speak and write at the same time. So the car didn't start, and then we also have the car wouldn't start. I suppose I could put the car ain't start over there too, but let's put that up there for an example. There you go. The car ain't start. The car ain't start. So yes, that would be correct for the example, even though it's incorrect. But I'm not going to focus on this incorrect English. But look how amazing this word is. I really should just do a whole lesson on ain't because it's so useful. But anyway, we will just focus on these. So this is an interesting question. The car didn't start and the car wouldn't start. Pardon this really long apostrophe here. But notice what I'm doing. The example actually came this way. So I think that was Brett maybe who was asking this. So the car didn't start and the car wouldn't start, or the car ain't start for that matter. Thought it was my credit card, yeah. Yes, pardon me. I need to focus. I think my problem is maybe you do this. Sometimes if you're listening, like if I'm listening to a podcast or something while I'm walking or doing something and I don't hear any sound for a while, I think there's something wrong. So I like to always have some kind of sound or something, and that's why when I'm writing, I try to speak at the same time. But anyway, so the car didn't start and the car wouldn't start. So this was an example already because the learner was wondering, well, what's the difference? I wonder if anybody knows the difference in these. And without trying to think about examples, it is actually quite a tricky example to think about which one we might be using. And so that would be a cause for really a lack of confidence. So if you don't feel certain which of these we could use in this situation, then that would be a reason for you to be struggling in the conversation. So we want to fix that. So we answered a couple of things about this in just in the members area. But I wanted to talk about this in more detail because it really is an interesting question. So the car didn't start versus the car wouldn't start. Does anyone have a reason why we would use one rather than the other? All right. Now I will begin by saying that we really don't have much information. We really don't have much information. So we could assume this is just like maybe this morning. So it just happened one time today. So let's give that a little bit extra information here. So this morning, and then these would be lowercase t's over here. This morning, the car didn't start or the car wouldn't start. So how do we know which one is correct, or is there a difference in the meaning between these two things? Any ideas? I'll give you all a moment as I collect a quick sip of water over here. If anybody has any idea about which would be correct or why you would use one rather than the other. Or if you just want me to do all the work, okay, fine. All right, so the car didn't start and the car wouldn't start. And this is a tricky example because we have so little information. I've just given you some extra information. We're talking about maybe one time. So it tries and says the car wouldn't start. George says wouldn't start is broken, didn't start, does not turn on. Those are some interesting examples, but we don't really know. We actually can't guess the didn't versus wouldn't in this case if we only know the car didn't start. And I even added this extra information here, but if we're just looking, you could use either and both of them would be correct. But what's the difference? And so this is an interesting thing when we're learning languages and we encounter some example like this, so something we don't understand. We need to look for more examples to really help us understand something, or we need to try to get more information from something. So we'll leave this here and I'll come back to it in a moment. Let's see if somebody else had something. Jacinta says the car didn't start this morning. Amine says maybe the car didn't start is a statement of fact. The car wouldn't start implies resistance or repeated attempts. Right. Yes, so you've got like the kind of grammar definition understanding of it. Arkham says this morning the car didn't start because there is a certain past timeline. Possibly. Nil says, I think both are correct. The second is perhaps more polite. It could actually, both of them are correct. You can use both of them. And this is, I think I've drawn this before, this little Venn diagram of when you're trying to learn, trying to understand the difference between some kind of nuance like this with English, or even if there's no nuance at all, it's just like you're looking at like the car didn't start versus the computer didn't start. So that's an interesting but very simple thing. We can easily tell the difference. But here we're looking for examples of where we can only use one, or we could use both, or we could only use another, something like that. So the difference is about probability, says Jolman. Glenna says, good morning. Oh, it looks like, I'm guessing that's a Vietnam flag. The car wouldn't start yesterday night. Again, yesterday night, you would say like last night, if you want to say that. But it's not about politeness. Katiga says, at the beginning of my journey to learn English, do you focus on hearing first or all skills? What should I do? We'll come back to that later, but in general, the goal is really just to understand the language well enough to use it. So basically, you have a switch inside your brain that if you are unconfident, basically stops you from speaking. So even if you know some vocabulary, if you still have some kind of doubt about the language like this, so this is an example where you would have a doubt. I want to talk about this car, but I don't know what's correct. Do we say the car didn't start or the car wouldn't start? Which would be correct for that? And so that kind of doubt would stop you from speaking. And maybe you would say nothing, or you would try to say maybe something else. Or you would just pick one and hope it's correct. All right, so that happens, and again, like same thing for me as a learner of Japanese, like I know what this is like. So having these kind of things, if you have a doubt about something, you won't be able to speak. So the question for language learning in general is not really should you listen or watch or read or whatever. The point is how quickly can you understand something well enough to feel confident about using it. All right, so I guess the fastest way to say this is how quickly can you eliminate the doubt. Okay, so how quickly can you eliminate the doubt? And you can do that in a variety of ways, but all of them, all of them can be helpful. It just depends on what you need for that situation. All right, Jolman says the difference is about probability. No, that's not it. The car didn't start, says Adriano. With didn't, you're sure the car doesn't work. That's not necessarily true. And again, like these are all good ideas, and these are the kinds of things you would test. So if you think about that, like the car didn't start and the car wouldn't start. We don't really know for sure. We can't, like all of these things we're thinking about, we honestly can't tell. We don't know the difference just with this limited information. And I'll explain why it's a tricky thing in just a moment. All right, let's see. Hello from New Jersey, Sao Paulo. Your classes helped me a lot. Glad to hear it. So you would say your classes have helped me a lot. It's my pleasure. All right, the Don't Star Low from Cuba. Let's see, bro, you changed my life from 0 to 0.0001. Awesome, or 000. I don't even know what fraction that is. It sounds like, all right, well, you made some improvement. There you go. Fantastic. All right, let's look at a different example, and we'll come back to this in just a moment. All right, now, slightly different example. I didn't go running. And we're going to contrast that again with I wouldn't go running. Now, maybe it becomes a little bit clearer, maybe. We'll talk about this, but I want you to think about these two examples here. I want you to try to think about a native and think about when. This is the important thing. So I'm still not giving you much information, all right? I'm not giving you much information, but it's a little bit different from the above. Even if we like eliminate the this morning or whatever, this is a little bit different from this one. It's a little bit easier to understand the difference. I'll give you a moment to see if you can think about why they might be different. All right, so what is different between these and these over here? All right. So if you've heard this, again, if you don't have a great sense for this particular grammar distinction, it's okay. That's the point of this video, to help you understand that, because it is a very commonly used thing, and natives aren't really thinking about it logically. We got some grammar examples before about when you might use things like this. But rather than just teach you some rules, I want to help you understand it like a native. I want to eliminate the doubt. We want to give you a fluency trigger to really help you understand it and feel confident about using it. So forget about this morning for now. I just want to compare these two sets of examples over here. All right, let's see if anybody, I'll try not to get in your way as I look over chat. Let's see, the car didn't start implies a single instance of failure. The car wouldn't start suggests repeated attempts over time. Is that a good way to describe it? It's possible, but not necessarily. Again, I could be describing, let's say I have a car, if we're going to talk about the car example. So I put my key in the ignition and I turn it one time. I could say the car didn't start. I could also say the car wouldn't start. I can use both of those. All right, so grammatically, there's no difference there. All right, so you're right, like that thinking, that's you got the right idea about that. But a native could still say the car didn't start or the car wouldn't start. All right, and that's why we need to get more examples to really feel more confident about what the difference might be. Because sometimes, just like I gave this little example before, so right here, we're in this area. In the middle, where we have didn't over here and wouldn't over here, and both of those would be correct. They actually do mean something slightly different, but we don't really have much information for this example, so we can't know for sure. Okay, so that's the kind of trickier thing about this example over here. All right, but good, good, Amina, keep thinking over there. So Simo says, hello, how to get from intermediate level to advanced, kind of stuck. Thank you. Yeah, you're what's in what I call the fluency gap. And this just means where you know English, but you have trouble speaking. And the way to cross that is by eliminating any doubts you have about vocabulary, grammar, whatever. So that's what we're doing in this video. Ernest says, Boa noite. Good night. All right, I'm more than lost. Son of, you'd say son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. All right, in on Father's Day. All right, son of a bitch. No, son of a bitch. Daniel says, is it bad to repeat yourself when you're talking to a native? Not necessarily. Does it have to do with conditionals? Not necessarily. JC says, I wouldn't go running without a pair of shoes. Yeah, so that's a conditional statement right there. So there's some reason why we would do it. Jolman says, wouldn't in the second pair of sentences refers to hypothetical situations? Not necessarily. I didn't go running this morning. All right, let me just tell you how I'm thinking about this as a native, because everyone's giving lots of good ideas, but I want to make it clear how a native would be thinking about this, and we're trying to do that with just some very simple examples here. So if a friend of mine tells me, and they only tell me this, I didn't go running, I will assume as a listener, oh, I didn't go running, it means they're really talking about one time. So first of all, so I don't know any other information. All they're doing is they're choosing between this word or this word. If they say I didn't go running, I will assume, I might not be correct, but I will assume they mean, oh, like they're talking about one time. Like I didn't go running this morning. Okay, so they didn't say that, but if this is the only thing they tell me, I didn't go running. All right, but if they're talking about, and both of these I will assume it's in the past somehow. So we're talking about maybe something that happened in the past. So I didn't go running. I will assume they mean one time. So they're talking about a particular instance of something, I didn't go running. All right, so part of this we'll explain a little bit in more detail, but if I hear I wouldn't go running, then I would assume this is like multiple, again, let me write this, multi, multiple times. Okay? So if I hear a friend say, oh, I didn't go running this morning. I didn't go running this morning. They're telling me, so they're talking about one specific instance and an additional bit of information. By using did, they're just telling me a fact. They're just giving me some information. There's no reason behind it, and they're not encouraging me to ask them why. Okay, I could ask why, but they're not really asking me or encouraging me to ask that. But if they say I wouldn't go running, then I will assume they mean at times in the past when something happened. So this will be a bit more clear as I expand this. Now, also I want to say sometimes you'll hear me say more clear and clearer. And again, this is one of those situations you can use both. You will hear people using both of those here. So I didn't go for a run this morning. Yeah, so if you're talking about like a specific instance, typically we would use did. We're just stating a fact. Something happened one time. I didn't go running. And so if I hear wouldn't, I will think they're talking about multiple things. Okay, so let's update the example a little bit. So I didn't go running, let's say when I was young. If we make the example a little bit longer, I'm trying to fit this in here. So for both of these, so I didn't go running when I was young. All right. In this case, I didn't go running when I was young. So we have a longer period of time in the past. I didn't go running when I was young. They're just telling me about like during that time, I didn't do something. It's just a statement of fact. They don't really care. I'm not curious. It's just like did you ride horses when you were young? No, I didn't ride horses. So I'm not going to ask them why, because it doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't, when we talk about didn't, there's no real like caring here. It's just a statement of fact. All right, generally speaking. So possibly they could have a reason for this, but if they say I wouldn't go running when I was young, now that becomes much more interesting. Just by changing this one word over here, oh, I wouldn't go running when I was young. Now I'm going to wonder, why not? All right? Because I'm assuming there is some kind of reason, and they're implying that there's a reason because they said would. All right? So again, even just this slight difference, if they say did, it probably means there's a reason, but maybe it's not important or they don't care. I'm not going to ask them why or be curious about that. But if they say, yeah, I wouldn't go running, it means there's probably some reason why they didn't do that. Okay? So this is why this sentence up here, these two examples, it becomes more difficult to understand because we don't have a lot of information. So let's say the car didn't start, would imply probably like we put the key in the ignition, we turn it one time, oh, the car didn't start. Okay? But maybe I take like 5 minutes, the car wouldn't start. Okay? So in that case, we know a little bit more. Now we're talking about multiple times of trying to do something. There's a little bit more information we have if we know that information. But this is why you have to pay attention. It's tricky for people when they just kind of start, like I will get questions from people sometimes about some random vocabulary, and I say, well, the meaning depends on the situation, because the vocabulary is always connected to some kind of situation. Okay? So it's more difficult if you just say, like, here are two words, what does that mean, or what's the difference? I will usually ask the person asking me, I will say, well, what exactly is the situation? Can you describe what's happening? Okay? So we want to understand the whole situation to get as much information as possible, and that will help us to understand like the difference between these things. So this is much easier than trying to get a rule book or something. I want to look through a grammar book about, okay, like the difference. So would is like usually it's multiple times, it's habitual, or it's repeated, something like that. So I can look in a book and get that, but really I want to pay attention to what natives are saying when they do these, when they say these different things. And I might even ask a person, like some people, if you have a friend, obviously if you have a teacher, you can ask them. But if you have a friend, you can say, oh, that's interesting. You said I didn't go running. Why did you not say I wouldn't go running? And they might, if they're kind of thoughtful about it, they might give you an answer like that. So that's my job. But if you don't have me, or you're not in Fluent for Life or one of my programs or whatever, this is the kind of thing you should be doing. So you should be looking for more examples until you can really understand, like, okay, what's the difference here? Why would one use one thing rather than the other? All right. So up here, grammatically, there's no difference. And there's no real difference in nuance, because we actually could be talking like you put the key in the ignition, you turn it one time, and you still could say both of these. Oh no, the car didn't start. So I put the key in the ignition, the car didn't start. Or I put the key in the ignition, the car wouldn't start. I can use both of those, all right? Now, the slight difference in nuance could be that maybe there's like a reason why it didn't start, but we don't know. From just this 1, 2, 3, 4, so these few words up here, we don't really know, okay? So it's important if you get something like this, rather than trying to like force yourself to understand this, you want to get more examples, try to compare it with more things, okay? So I didn't go running when I was young. So when I was young implies like it's, maybe a couple of years or something. So that's a long period of time. So there's probably, like, if you did go running, there would be a repeated action. So I wouldn't go running was, oh, maybe there was an actual problem, and it becomes much more interesting. You want to find out, you ask why. So typically when natives use did, you don't usually get a question back from them like, oh, why? Like, why not? Now, maybe you can ask that, but more people would ask why when they hear would, because, oh, there's some kind of reason. So if I heard that, I didn't go running when I was young, people will just think, oh, okay, maybe you didn't go running because it's not, it's like you just didn't do it. Maybe some people, I didn't swim when I was young. Okay. There's not like, oh, I could ask, oh, why not? But they would probably just reply, oh, like I didn't have a pool, or we didn't go by the ocean, or whatever. It's just not important. But if like I wouldn't go swimming, it's like, ooh, wow, maybe there's a real difference here. There's like a reason, like we have, maybe they were scared of running or scared of swimming or whatever. Okay? So as we get more information and we can compare something rather than looking just one example, the reason this becomes tricky is because we really could use either. It's one of those situations where we could use either. So we're looking for something, when could we only use one or the other? Okay? So your job to eliminate the doubt, the fluency trigger comes when you find like some example. So for this example here, it's basically impossible to know the difference, because you could say either one and actually mean the same situation. But for these, you could say the same thing, but they really do mean something different. Okay? Especially if we get more information. All right? Is that a little bit more clear? Hopefully that's a little bit more clear. I can give you some more examples if you need them, but this is the basic idea. So when we find something we don't know, we really want to understand the situation. We really want to make sure, okay, I want to make a sentence or have another example sentence, but I only want to change one thing about it. So I want to focus on like the car didn't start versus the car wouldn't start. All right, and this works with vocabulary. Again, the car didn't start or the computer didn't start. So I'm only changing one example, and that really helps your brain understand the difference. So the car didn't start or the computer didn't start. We know the change is in the noun over here, and we're just talking about two different things. But here we're talking about, oh, there's a grammar question here. Do I understand the nuance of that? All right. So there are other things we can learn from this. So again, we've got the difference, like typically something that you did is you're just talking about like one time that you did something. Or if you did not, again, even when you were young, it's like basically no times. But wouldn't implies some kind of like habitual thing, like you did it often or regularly, or you're repeating some kind of thing. So it doesn't necessarily do that, but this is the slight difference in nuance when you're especially talking about something like this. This is a reason why a native would say would rather than did. Okay? So when you're asking someone like, and I also want to make it clear, we don't want to like take a look at a word like would and try to look at every definition of what it means and all the different uses of it. This is why it's so important to focus on this situation. So we're talking about something in the past that didn't happen, and we're talking about why did versus would for this situation. It's really important for this situation. I don't want to teach you the word would and then try to give you like every definition of it. We want to be focused on that. All right. So especially for a lesson like this, a specific question about the difference between these, you don't want to add more information and confuse yourself more. All right. But hopefully this makes sense. Let me check comments and see if anybody has any questions about that. Let's see. Gentleman says, wouldn't the second pair of sentences refer to a pair of hypothetical situations? No, not necessarily. I mean, you're just talking about what you didn't do, or again, like we're not like, and that's another tricky thing about this, where we're not looking at like I would do something if this condition, like that's a hypothetical. But here we're not talking about that. We're actually talking, this is a different situation than a hypothetical. We're just saying, oh, I didn't do something and there's probably a reason for it. That's the like extra bit of information there. So it's really important, like as a learner, you will probably know, oh, would, that means like that's for conditional statements, right? Or when we want to give like more information, and did is for one time and expressing facts or something. So you can think about it that way, but I'm trying to get you to think about it more like a native, because if you change the way you think, then it will make more sense. Okay, like for this particular situation, you need to understand the grammar as like a tool in that specific situation. So it's not about taking the word would and learning all the different uses of it. We just want to learn it like this. This is how natives learn vocabulary. So they have a situation. So someone's like, oh, like I put the key in the ignition, oh, the car didn't start. Or I put the key in the ignition, oh, the car wouldn't start. So like a native English speaking child would see that a parent is trying to do something, and they learn, oh, you could say both. The car didn't start or the car wouldn't start. But here we have a slightly different example. All right. Up here, we don't know like let's say we change the example slightly. All right, now I'm going to change the example, and you should feel kind of like a fluency trigger in your mind about like, it makes more sense now. So let's say if we add for years. For years, the car didn't start, and for years, the car wouldn't start. Now we have, wow, that's actually quite a bit more information. So we had up here before this morning, but if we're talking about for years, the car didn't start. That would sound a little bit odd, all right? It could be grammatically correct. Yes, it didn't start, but it would sound more natural because we're talking about something happening multiple times. It's happening again and again. All right, so for years, the car didn't start. Yeah, you could say that, but it sounds a little bit more interesting and natural. The car would not start, because we're talking about something that happened again and again, sometimes, over some period of time. 4 years this happened, okay? So whenever you're talking about something happening over a long period of time, typically it's like something happening again and again, and that's when we would use would. But I don't want you to think about it like a grammar rule. Okay, this word means this. It's not like that. It's like the word comes from the situation. The situation is more important. Now the situation is changed because we're not talking about one time today where you could use both of these. We're talking about really something happening again and again. And in that case, would sounds more natural. Okay? So we're not trying to teach like would and then a whole bunch of uses of it. We just really want to help you understand this usage in this situation. Okay, so you feel confident one thing at a time. This is why we say you get fluent in something one step at a time, one thing at a time, rather than in like the whole thing. Let's see. Does it call second conditional or third conditional sentences? Don't worry about that. If you want to know like the definitions, the reason I don't talk about that stuff is because it's not helpful to know that. A native speaker will not know if something is a first conditional or second conditional or whatever, because who cares? It doesn't matter. The interesting thing is natives are just thinking about the situation and then what words. So when do we use something? What words do we typically use in this situation? So here, if we just say the car didn't start or the car wouldn't start, we could use either. Both of those are fine. But if we now have more information, for years, the car didn't start or the car wouldn't start, and we add maybe a reason in there too. Typically would goes with some kind of reason. So we would get for years, the car didn't start because there was a squirrel inside the car, like living in the engine or something. All right, so for years, the car didn't start because of something. That would sound a little bit odd. It's correct, you could say that, but it would sound a little bit odd. Typically, we're talking about, oh, there's a reason for something. The car wouldn't start because of something. That's a condition, the reason the squirrel is the reason for the car not starting. So that's the condition in that case. So we as we get more information, it becomes more clear which one of these would be kind of sounding natural. But I'm trying to help you build this one step at a time, okay? I don't want to just give you like a really long sentence. I want to explain why, even with something short, the car didn't start or the car wouldn't start, it actually is a little bit more difficult to understand because we don't have much information. So we could use either one of these. So again, we have our little Venn diagram for did or didn't. For this specific example, it's really in here. It could be either a native actually could say the car didn't start or the car wouldn't start. I bet if you went to a like a auto mechanic shop and you just listened to people there, you would probably get maybe a few more people saying wouldn't, but they would mean like maybe they tried it or something like that. Okay. But the car didn't start, you will hear both of those in this same situation. But if we start adding more information now, we get like two separate ideas. This is where the nuance becomes more accessible, where we can actually understand more, and we would see why a native would pick one word rather than another. So if we say for years, the car didn't start, that would sound weird. You would hear fewer natives using that. You could say that, but you would hear fewer people saying that. You would hear many more people saying the car wouldn't start. All right? And so the same thing down here, I didn't go running. I will assume, okay, if I don't know what you're talking about, but maybe if I understand the context, if I ask you, oh, like, what did you do this morning? And my friend says, oh, I didn't go running. Then that is really the only correct thing to say. My friend would not say, oh, I wouldn't go running. That would sound weird because it's talking about a specific time. What did you do this morning? So, oh, I wouldn't go running. Well, why are you talking about that? You mean you didn't go running. That's what you mean, okay? So this is, again, we want to start with something small, look at examples, and things like this, if they are tricky, get more examples and try to look at like the difference between like, oh, like I didn't do something versus I wouldn't do something. So when would it be important that we would have one word rather than another? Okay, so if we know for sure something is one time, and we don't really care about the reason, we're just stating a fact, oh, I didn't do it. Okay, so very simple, like 10 years ago, I didn't go to Korea. Okay, I just didn't go. But if I say 10 years ago, I wouldn't go to Korea, people are like, ooh, wow, like, why not? You know, what's the reason for that? Like, oh, I wouldn't do that. You know, like I wouldn't do that. It means there's some reason, and maybe that's important. Maybe I don't want to talk about it, but you can see in that case, it becomes a much more important thing. Okay. Does this make sense? So this is why, like, you see, I don't draw like a grammar table up here and and try to say like, well, this is this and this is the rule, and we're going to go through 10 grammar points in 1 hour or whatever. That stuff is mostly a waste of time. if you don't really understand it. All right, so you have to feel confident. Like, raise your hand. Let me know if this video made you feel more confident about this. All right, or like do something. All right, let me know if this makes sense. If you still have questions, let me know. I will go back and check the chat though and see if I've missed anybody. All right. Let's see. Hello from Syria. Where did I get back to? So I didn't go for a run this morning. Wellington, why did you put running in gerund same in the past? Well, you could do either one. So that's another interesting example. Like natives will often talk about like the activity, like to do something or to go running as like, you can use either of those. In this case, like you can use both. So I didn't go running or I didn't run. You could use either of those. Go running is kind of like an idea or like the name of an activity. So I didn't go running, I didn't go fishing, I didn't go, what's another thing? Go skating. There are other things like activities where we just talk about them in that way. So I could say I didn't fish when I was young, all right? But it sounds more natural to say go fishing because that's like we're talking about the activity there, all right? But you could say that I didn't fish when I was young. Both of those are fine. But good question, good question. That's another example of like, oh, like why did we use this rather than that? Interesting. All right. Did I skip anybody? Okay. Looks like some good questions up here. All right. All right. Daniela says, hi there. Sorry for delay. Came to class here. I like your class. I always use it to practice my skill of listening. So skill of listening. And I'm increasing this ability. Thankful to you. Hello from Syria. Did you know the important English grammar for speak? Oh, did you know? Well, there's no real difference like writing versus speaking. You should be correct in both of these things. New Natural says both phrases describe the same outcome, but the second one adds a layer of resistance on the car's part. Yeah, it's again like you can put that in there, but it might not necessarily be true. All right, so I can, and this is what we're looking for. We want to use our discernment, our logic, and think like, could we say both in this situation? The car didn't start or the car wouldn't start. Would both of those be correct? Even if there's some kind of nuance in there, and this is the important thing for learning because really you want to know, is there a difference? Is it important at all? Because if there's no difference, then we don't need a lesson. I just say use both. It doesn't matter. All right, but there is a difference, and if we want to communicate that, then we want to usually give more information. But sometimes, like this up here, this example, like we could use didn't, or we could use wouldn't, or we could use both. It just depends on the situation. But we have to be careful about why we like add something or change something, or if we are putting in our own thinking into the situation when it's not there. So we do want to get more examples. And this is why I often ask people when they say, Drew, what does this word mean? I will say, well, when did you hear that? All right, what was the situation? Explain more about that. Because we could hear a word and it could mean something completely different depending on the situation. All right, Academy Book Club says, why do natives use would for conditional sentences and would for talking about habitual things? Why? Well, again, typically a different word would be used because we want to communicate like a different meaning. All right, and it sounds like a simple, like a straightforward response. But let's say we only had didn't, like I didn't go for a run. It's just, we don't really know if you're talking about just stating a fact or if you're talking about doing something repeatedly or habitually or whatever. And this is how the language evolves over time. I can't speak about like when these words were created, but typically new words are created when we need a new way to describe something. All right, so that's why we would have something like that. It says, if I were you, I wouldn't go running. What about the feeling you get about this phrase? Yes, so this is a different situation. We're talking about something in the past. As example, we're talking about something like in general, like general advice, or talking about for the future. Like if I were you, I would not walk down that way. So I'm giving a conditional statement saying there's probably a reason. I have not said the reason, but you should probably not do that thing. All right, so that's different. Again, it's important when we just hear a word like would, there are different uses of it. Here we're talking specifically about the past, like didn't versus wouldn't, okay? So we want to be clear about that. Make sure you understand one thing at a time. If you do, then you can talk about something else, all right? Just like for keeping that. So I would remember that if I were you, okay? Keep this in mind. I would remember this idea. Nils says, I wouldn't go running because I hurt my leg. Yeah. So in that case, like if you're talking about the past, I wouldn't go running because I hurt my leg. You're giving a reason. That's the important thing, the information people need to know. And often when people use would in the past, they give a reason. All right. But if I just say like, oh, I wouldn't go to the park when I was young, people will think, oh, wow, like what happened? What's the reason for that? You know, but if I just say I wouldn't go to the park because something, then you're just telling the reason. Again, you could say I didn't go to the park when I was young because something, but would, like the nuance here is just slightly different for that. Okay, so am I stating a fact? It's not very interesting. I don't care. I'm just saying something happened, and now I want to give more information or explain maybe there's a cause, and that's important, and that's why we use would in this situation. Okay, I want to be very, very clear. I'm not trying to teach you every use of the word would. I don't want to focus on that. The point is helping you understand this like a native. So if you understand this usage of would, then other uses of would become more clear. Okay. All right. Wellington says, thanks. I understood. Jolman says, that's what I like about these videos. You really get a deeper understanding of the words compared to other methods. Yeah. So again, if you have doubt about something, you won't use it. So I need to keep digging until the doubt is gone. All right. Like that's what we're going for here. So even me, like I spent, I don't know, like an hour thinking about this yesterday. It's like, all right, how can I explain this so that people really get the idea and they're very clear about it? Let's see. Sungmin says, hi, Drew. My first time ever joining this live, though I've been watching and following your channel for months now, hoping I'll get to the level of ownership soon. Ha. Well, don't laugh about that. You got the idea. Remember that you get to the ownership level in individual words and phrases as you understand them. So you can do it. Hopefully you got to the ownership level about this. That's the point. And for people who don't know what I'm talking about, when you learn something, you get exposed to it first, then you understand it, you've got an awareness level, and the ownership is when you really removed all the doubt. That's when you feel finally confident to use something. I really appreciate all your hard work and the perspective. Glad to hear it. Let's see here. Oh, you're in Miami. Oh, look at that. I'm like, what is that? Well, welcome. Enjoy. Hopefully, Florida is doing well for you. Arizona Taro. You should change your name to Florida Taro. All right, Chewy, excellent lessons. I highly appreciate. Glad to hear. Adriana, this is what I call a great class. Glad to hear it. Welcome, teacher. Hi, I'm from Thailand. Says Cam, nice to see you again. Academy Book Club. Thanks a lot, teacher Drew. I've been following you for years on YouTube. Glad to hear it. All right, our interesting class. Make sure you like the live. Yes, if you enjoy this, then click the like button and let other people know. Hey, if you want to remove some of that doubt, we're going to clear out the confusion, then tell people to join us over here. Let's see, Anurag Kumar, good morning, love you, sir, glad to hear it. And Glax says, does it call, okay, I answered that question already. So if you care about like what is the third conditional or the second conditional, you might need to know that for a test. Like if the teacher is asking you, I feel bad if that's true, but it's not important that you know that information for, you can just think about it like conditionals, like there's a reason or a cause in general, all right? So I don't focus on that because it's not necessary to speak, and if natives don't know that information, you don't need to know that information either. You probably don't know it even in your native language. You might if you're learning through translations, but it's not necessary to do that. Like if I'm learning something in Japanese, I'm doing the same thing. So I don't think like, is this like the first conditional or the second conditional? It's like in Japanese, we've got like tada and nara in like the same kind of thing. Like or like the first conditional or the second conditional. It's like, which of these do we use? I don't try to just look at the grammar definition. I want to get lots of examples and hear, okay, so natives are using it like this. Like if I hear like which of these things, like typically in an advertisement, it's like, if you're doing this, you should do this other thing over here. So like, I learn it that way. I'm not trying to study a bunch of rules. It's helpful, I guess, to know the names of things if you want to look them up. But other than that, it's not really going to improve your ability to speak. And hopefully that's why you're here. All right, I've got it. Says Reynaldo Nils says, I love the way you teach with heart and soul. Glad to hear. Adriano, it does make sense. Glad to hear. All right. Vinicius says, you're an astonishing teacher, really easy to understand the core idea. Yes, that's what we're going for. Monica, hello, this is my first time joining here. I'm from Japan. Well, that's interesting. Are you in Japan right now? I'm in Nagasaki. Louis Yoshioka says, I wouldn't use a gun if I do resolve something. Oh, if I could resolve. Yes, in that case, you're talking about in general. And remember, that's a different use of wood. It's a different use of wood. That's why the name of this video is not how to use every use of wood. This is just like, I didn't even put that in the title because I don't want, like some people might look for that, but maybe we'll make like a short video or something with this. Me speaketh Old English. Look at that. Jihun says, would is more repeated. Yes, in general, if we're talking about the past, so this is like a specific thing for this situation. So I wouldn't do something like in the past, like my mother did something, or my mother wouldn't cook with rice. Okay? So my mother wouldn't do something. We're talking about like there was an opportunity and she didn't do it. There was another opportunity and she didn't do it. There was another opportunity and she didn't do it. This is the basic idea of like a repeated thing, even if you didn't do something. All right? So listen carefully to this. I've got a lot of stuff. Let me clear this, clear the board over here. Just to make it clear, because it sounds a little bit weird when we talk about repeating something, but you're not doing it. But it's more about the opportunity or the chance, and then you don't do that thing. So if I didn't do something, and I wouldn't. So it's same vocabulary here. I'm not changing this, but hopefully this makes it a little bit easier. Typically, when I say I didn't do something, there was an opportunity, and I did not do that thing, okay? So I'm stating a fact, but really the more important thing is it's really just one thing. So if I'm talking about like this morning, for example, so this morning I didn't run. So this morning I had an opportunity. I could have run. I don't even want to say that. I mean, it's correct, but I don't want to explain like more and go into would and could and should and all of that. But I just want to focus on this. So wouldn't implies there are typically multiple opportunities over some period of time, and you did not do those things. Okay, so I didn't go running this morning. It's pretty clear we have an opportunity, one opportunity, and we did not do something. But if I wouldn't go running when I was young, it's like I had probably many opportunities to do that, and I just didn't do it. All right, so it implies I wouldn't do that, and maybe there's an interesting reason why, or maybe not. All right. So it could, again, it's important to understand, like I could say I didn't go running when I was young. It's possible to say that, it's grammatically correct. But the slight difference in nuance is like there's probably a reason. So it's multiple times of something. There's probably a reason that's important. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. That's what we're talking about. So I would, if we want to make this like a little bit easier, and it's expressing the opposite. Look, I did go running when I was young. Here, I mean, probably I went running many times. I ran many times, and you can use both of those. So I ran many times, or I went running. You can say that. So I did do that thing. So we could talk about one time, or it could mean we have multiple opportunities, and I did it many times. Okay. Or I would go running. It means like, yes, I had many opportunities, and I did do that thing. Okay. All right, let me know if I'm explaining too much. Let's see. All right, I think I answered that one. Meg says, I wouldn't go swimming in the ocean because I've learned how to swim. You can say, I haven't learned how to swim. So you would say, I wouldn't go swimming in the ocean. And I don't know, you could use would for talking about the past and the future. And again, this is why it's important to know specifically what you're talking about. But if you're giving like a kind of conditional about the past, like I wouldn't do something because, there were sharks in the water. All right. So in that case, we're talking about something like I wouldn't do something because of whatever that reason was. And so it becomes like you can change the sentence just maybe one word. So listen carefully. I wouldn't go swimming because there are sharks in the water. I wouldn't go swimming because there are sharks in the water. I wouldn't go swimming because there are sharks in the water. Now that would mean, there's like some particular like actual sharks and we're talking about now, or any advice for some kind of future activity. Okay? So I wouldn't go swimming now because there are sharks. But if I'm talking about the past, I would say the same thing, but I wouldn't go swimming because there were sharks in the water. So that implies like maybe there were sharks, but there are no sharks anymore, and now I can go swimming. All right? So be clear about what you're saying if you're talking about the past or giving specific information or advice or something about the future. So you can be talking about yourself, like I wouldn't do that, but you can also use I wouldn't do that for like just giving advice to someone else. Like I wouldn't wear a bright yellow shirt, but maybe you could do that. Like I wouldn't do that. And probably the reason would be is like, I don't like that thing, whatever that example is. All right. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. All right. Hijabil Han says, if you are enjoying the lesson, hit the like button. Yes. But it said, hi, sire. Well, you would say sir. You can say that if you like. Sire is like, it's like, hello, my king. You're like, my sire. I'm sure that's probably a typo, but the same thing. This is why it becomes interesting. Like, sir. Sir is just like a polite thing for a man. Hi, sir. But sire, ooh, look at that. That becomes a completely different word. Isn't that interesting? If you'd like to learn more, this is called the magic E. So it turned this short vowel into, look at that, the long vowel sound. So we have sir becoming sire. You will hear this in movies with knights and castles and kings and things like that. But in Frederick, you can learn more about that by clicking on the link in the description below this video if you'd like to learn more about pronouncing words and spelling words, that kind of thing. All right, so watching from India, I haven't go or I didn't go. Well, you would say I haven't gone. That's a different thing. I don't want to get into like additional grammar points or this video is going to get too long. We've already passed an hour, but again, you can do the same kind of thing where we're comparing two different things and you will find out more information about that. Wellington says, great, do you speak Japanese? Yes, I speak Japanese. MD says, you are the best teacher. Oh, you guys are too kind. I think if you look on like anybody's YouTube video, there will be people who say, you are the best teacher. I do appreciate the compliment, though. Rainer says, greetings from Venezuela, Compass Plus. Hey, good morning. H. Ray, hi, Lewis. Another Yoshioka here. Yes, if you're in Brazil, there are like many people with like Japanese names over there. I wouldn't study English when I was young. Yes, that's correct. So I wouldn't study English when I was young. In that case, it means like you didn't do it or you refused to do it, you didn't want to do it, or you just had some opportunities and you didn't take them. So I wouldn't do that. So if you say, I didn't study English when you were young, that's just a statement of fact. You're just, like when I was young, I didn't have an English teacher, that kind of thing. Academy again says, which is better, clear the board or erase the board? Both of them are fine. Remember that there's never just like one perfect way to say something. You could explain things in many different ways, and this is how we get like what I call naturally varied review. Remember, natives are beginning with a situation, so if the situation is clearing the board, so this is the situation. I'm doing some kind of action right here. I could wipe off the board, I could wipe down the board, I could clear the board, I could erase the board. Lots of different ways to explain this. And it's not like one of them is better than the others. It's just you would hear different people saying different things. So usually, the way I often explain it is for a particular situation, whatever that situation is, you will have maybe like a bell curve of particular phrases that you might hear. So if the situation is ordering food at a restaurant, all right, let's say we're going to McDonald's or something and I want to order some food. Often you will hear people say like, can I get? Because this is a casual way of saying this. So if we have 100 people go into McDonald's, you would have like a lot of people saying, can I get? So can I get, can I get, can I get, can I get? And you might have a few people who say may I have, but it would be fewer people and they're speaking more politely. People are going to be less polite at a McDonald's because it's casual, okay? And so these are the things like you get a sense for what is more useful or more often used than something else. But both of them are fine, okay? But this is, again, why it's important. We begin with the situation. We want to think about when people are using things. Why is it important for someone to, to learn these particular things? As you get more examples, it's more examples that help you understand the language better. You don't become fluent by learning one thing and repeating it again and again, because often in real conversations, people will say something different. Oh, like I'm wiping the board, but my teacher said clear the board. Okay, they're both fine. So in that case, you're getting multiple examples because you really want to learn the same way natives do. This is why we give so many examples in Fluent for Life. That's the whole point of the program. All right, let's see if we, but good question. Myra said, absolutely 100%, wonderful example, wonderful explanation, glad to hear. Yes, my bad, MZ had just opened my eye in the middle of the night. It's so frustrating, see you later, it's okay. Remember, these are, you can join us for the live, but the replays are always available. Bao says, hello, teacher, and all of you watching Learning English. All right. Miami Taro, as you said, I changed my handle name. Much appreciated. Now, you can just say handle. Handle means name. So you can just say handle. I changed my handle. Good work, though. All right, Meg says, because I haven't learned how to swim. Yeah. All right, so if you're talking about like from the past, even up until now, the same thing. All right, Myra says, I wouldn't eat fish because I have an allergy. Is that what you mean, an allergy? Yeah, I wouldn't eat fish because I had an allergy. So in that case, like you would be talking about something in the past. So I wouldn't eat fish because I have an allergy. You would probably just say like, I don't eat fish because I have an allergy. So in that case, you're stating a fact. If you say I wouldn't eat fish because I have an allergy, is like maybe you didn't in the past, but you would now. All right. So again, there's a slightly different usage of it, but if you're talking about like something you would do or something you would not do, it's important also to keep the tense correct. So I wouldn't do something because I had an allergy. In that example, it means you didn't do something because you had an allergy, and that would mean now I don't. But if you're talking about in general, like for my whole life, and I'm continuing, I'm still alive, so my whole life I have had an allergy to fish, and so I have not eaten fish. I don't eat fish. So you could just very simply say, I don't eat fish because I am allergic. That's the like fastest way to say it. All right. So you can begin with something simple, but if we're talking about something that happened in the past and now that's changed, so a condition, again, that's what we mean by a conditional. Like, what is the condition? What is the reason? So if I had a reason, the reason was allergy, and I don't have that reason anymore, then the sentence changes. So I wouldn't eat fish because I had an allergy. I wouldn't eat fish because I had an allergy, but now I'm fine. So that's what that means. It's like before I had an allergy when I was young, but now the allergy is gone. So I can eat fish now. All right. So pay attention and think carefully about what you want to say. Like, again, don't start with the words. Think about the situation. Oh, okay, I had an allergy before. Now I do not. So I can talk about something that happened before, but now something has changed. All right. Let's see. Okay, Osborne says, I wouldn't go running, meaning whenever I faced a chance to decide if I went running or not, the answer is always no. Yes. So if you're talking about like I wouldn't go running, like I wouldn't take my shirt off at the beach. All right, that means like anytime I go to the beach, I did not do that thing. All right. What time is it? All right, Sebastian says respect. Respect, thank you. All right, I think I answered that one already. Do you teach IELTS English for young learners? If you're looking for something like young learners, like or even adult learners, get Frederick. So you can click on the link in the description below this video. That will allow them to teach themselves English. And so like what I do is it's obviously useful for preparing for certain tests, and it will help you speak, which will help you on any kind of speaking test. It doesn't matter what the test is, but I'm not a specific IELTS or TOEIC or whatever, that kind of teacher. So if you want that specific kind of training to pass a test, look for that kind of teacher. If you want to speak, that's what I do. All right. Let's see. All right, you guys getting lots of questions in here. All right, Ranjit says, I could not do that. Yeah, if you're talking about the past. Hello, teacher, have a nice day today. Teacher, what, do you have a cup of water? Well, I have my usual bottle. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, usually I need to have a cup, might be better. How can we buy your FFL in China since China has no PayPal? Can we pay using Alipay or WeChat? I think we might allow that in the future. We don't currently. Typically, we have people joining us from China just use a credit card and a VPN, I think, or they just ask someone to pay for them and then pay them back in cash. So we do have members in China. I don't know if the government knows about that, but however they are able to pay, we do have people in China from who are Fluent for Life members, though. All right. But we look forward to welcoming you to the program. How do I understand what I'm reading? You should read things that you understand. I know that sounds like that's kind of a weird response to that, but you should be reading things that you understand most of already. And then you slowly expand your understanding or to talk about things that like you should be understanding 80 to 90% of what you read, so that new things it's easy to understand within the context. And that helps you learn this way. You're trying to connect, again, understand the situations rather than just trying to learn vocabulary by stopping and looking things up in a dictionary. Eunice, again, I see you there. Arigato kaizen. Ching. What? Arigato. Let's see. Academy Book Club, thank you so much. Charles Beck, long time no see. What is the shortcut to get a perfect score for TOEIC test as a second learner? Again, look for someone who focuses on that. I can't tell you the best advice, and you should have good advice. So find people who focus on TOEIC. I'm sure you can find people right here on YouTube that do that, and ask them. Sebastian says, when we have to use who, which. I covered that a little bit earlier in the video, but these are, again, like these kind of differences, this is the kind of thing we do in Fluent for Life. So we make whole videos that are like helping you understand this, and it's actually with like videos of stuff you can see, like actions happening. It's much easier to understand it that way. I just try to write things and keep them simple up here. But if you'd like to learn more about that, then you can do that. Let's see. All right, Ash Girl. Hey, Ilder says, how's it going, Drew? Just in time. Let's learn some English from you. It's my pleasure. Well, we'll see how much longer we go if I can get to the end of these comments. If people keep asking me questions over here. MD says, my speaking not very fluent, sir. Very day try again. Yes, typically, if you can understand what I'm saying, but you can't speak, you are at the fluency gap. So this is where you know English. I'll just draw like a little cliff over here and a cliff over here. Most people are like, you know, they're kind of on this side over here, and they want to be on the fluent side. And the way you get here is by deleting, destroying, ending the doubt that you have about individual words and grammar. So you actually cross this for individual words and phrases. That's how you get from the awareness level to the ownership level when you can speak. All right, so you need to eliminate the doubt. That's why I spend so much time on individual lessons. I'm not trying to teach you 1,000 things at the same time. I really want to help you understand and eliminate any doubt you have about particular pieces of, you know, what could be vocabulary or grammar or pronunciation, whatever. see here. All right, yeah, the comments are like scrolling up too fast over here. Eunice again, would has many uses. Would you do that for me? Permission? Yes, that's correct. Like, would you like, you can ask someone else if they would like something, like I bring a glass of water to your table or something. Would you like some more water? All right, Thong says, I noticed that sometimes the native speakers do ignore the word ending sound. Is that okay? Yes, I don't want to like speak generally or I guess specifically about it, but it depends on the situation. And yes, you will hear people speaking faster, not saying whole sentences or whole words or eliminating different pieces like that. It's in the middle of sentences as well, not just at the end. Let's see. Lewis says, much appreciated. I do understand it now. Glad to hear it. Mahak says, would can be substituted with used to, right? No, that's a different thing. Again, it depends on for that situation. So like if you're talking about something you did in the past, you could say, yes, I would, or you used to. But like used to and would are not always the same. So I really want to make that clear. Like I got this. Sometimes you can use used to, and that has its own meaning, or would has its own meaning. Sometimes they mean the same thing. So it's important to understand when people say things. Always go for the situation first. Really understand the situation, and then try to think about what are the words people are using in that situation. Academy learned a lot. Glad to hear it. Looks like lots of clapping hands over there. Receiver says, I wouldn't and I used. Is there the same difference? I wouldn't in. All right, I don't want to go into too much detail about that. But again, these are the kinds of things that we cover in Fluent for Life. Maybe in another lesson here we can cover more distinctions like this. So for my next video, I don't know what I'll talk about yet, but if you have specific questions, let me know. What's the difference between used to and would? Yes, that's another example for another time. Hello, I'm from Iran. Meg says, I wouldn't talk to people when I was a teenager because I was too shy. Is it correct? Yes, that's how you would say it. All right. So remember, it is possible you can say, I didn't talk to people when I was a teenager because I was too shy, but would, you're using it correctly. It has the better nuance for that situation. All right. Ash, girl, you are doing amazing teaching. Glad to hear. I appreciate it. Please tell us about the fee for the English program. Well, if you'd like to learn more about any of our programs, just click on the link in the description below this video, or you can go to EnglishAnyone.com and learn more about things. Let's see. Thanks for your explanation. You could say thanks for your explanation. Let's see. Airy. That's an interesting name. I do have this huge pressure on me that I have to be a native speaker in a short time while I'm in the States. I never watch American shows and talking to others in English, so my English is so bad. Well, why are you not, if you're putting pressure on yourself, why are you not watching shows or trying to talk with people? I don't understand. But if you want to, it's okay to put pressure on yourself to learn, but it's more, I should put pressure on myself to keep, to stay with something until I really get it. If you don't understand that thing, it's okay to stop and maybe get some more examples and come back another time. But you really should be focusing on a particular thing like we're doing this. So I will keep, for myself, I will keep hitting something until I knock that thing out. And so I like to do the same thing for my students, because if I can give you that fluency trigger and really help you understand something, then you will finally feel confident about using that particular thing. Then we move on to something else. All right, but it's best to focus on one thing at a time. Sebastian says, I want to buy a course to achieve B2 level. Do you have material for sale? Yeah, it's called Fluent for Life. You can click on the link in the description below. Obama says, a student from Iran, I'm not your enemy. Well, I'm not your enemy either. I don't have any enemies. All right, thank you for your answers. Thanks. Let's see. I want to learn English for IELTS from you. Can I? Again, we don't focus on IELTS, but obviously all the things that we do teach will improve your IELTS score, and we have many learners who do well after they take our program. We just don't focus specifically on tests, so I can't give you the best advice for that. Receiver, do you have a video about using self-reflection pronouns? I think we probably have, yes, in Fluent for Life we should have that. Thanks for answering my question. Explain, what does a nuance mean? A nuance is like a slight difference about something. So in the example before, the car didn't start or the car wouldn't start. They really could mean the same thing. but the slight nuance, the slight difference in meaning is that this car like didn't start. Maybe I tried something one time or I don't care about the reason, but the car wouldn't start. Maybe I've tried it many times where there's a reason. The car wouldn't start because of some other reason. But if I just say the car didn't start, I'm just telling you a fact. It doesn't really matter. Maybe there's no further information you need. All right, I used to study Japanese when living in Japan, but now I study on my own. Well, glad to hear it. Your voice is clear and I understand speaking. All right. Oh, no. And look at that. We got a siren right at the end of the show. All right. We will close it down for today. If you do have questions and you didn't get to join us in the live video, do let me know if you have specific questions. I can cover things. I think I've probably even covered used to in previous videos. I'm pretty sure I have. We definitely cover that in Fluent for Life as well. But remember, the important point here is to find something. You want to make it simple. Compare it with other things if you already don't have something. So this learner actually had these particular things for this situation. But we really want to find something simple and then get lots of examples until we really understand that thing. So focus on the situation. When would we use something? And then you will feel confident about using it for that situation. And remember that we often will have multiple ways of expressing something for a particular situation. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's see. Final, sir, could you make a video on the difference between notion and concept? I mean, that's you don't need a whole video about that. Very quickly though, like an interesting thing about like a notion is just kind of like, it's almost like a quick thought. But a concept is typically something you spend more time developing. All right, so if I have a notion like, I think it would be interesting to do something, but I haven't thought about how to do it, or I have an idea about teaching or something. So like a notion is like people should understand before they speak. That's like a kind of notion, like a thought. But I develop that into an idea of like, I should give you a fluency trigger. That's a concept where we actually help you understand something. And I'm thinking about it more, developing like a notion into a bigger idea. All right. Look at that. Extra bonus lesson. All right. Plural nuances in English, is it the same in Portuguese nuances? Well, I can't speak to Portuguese, but we will come back for another video next time. Should be this Thursday, I believe, Japan time, around the same time. Come on back, join us, and I hope you guys are enjoying. But if you'd like to learn a lot more, you can click on links in the description below this video to learn more about Frederick. Fluent for Life. Let's see, I heard that people don't use the word native instead of native speaker, but you do. Is that the case for all native speakers? It doesn't matter. You can use both of those. That's fine. All right. Well, that's enough before I lose my voice completely. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.